Okay, let's recap. You should all now know the value of developing psychological habits of excellence. We should all be helping our students set goals, what, how, and why goals, and keeping their behaviors in line with their goals. Our students should understand that their ability to get their thoughts and feelings to match their intention will have a direct impact on performance, not only on the golf course, but in life. And based on what we've previously just learned, our students should be evolving their metacognitive processes. They should be developing awareness of their own thoughts. So now we're in a great position to help a student develop their OSVEA, the 5 components of a golf shot. And at the heart of OSVEA is 3 things: the ability to chunk, the ability to automate, and a growth mindset. So let's go. Let's dive deeper into chunking, automation, and growth mindset. Okay, let's talk chunking. And just because I brought Matthew in, I don't mean hitting the 7-iron 65 yards, big ball first. What do I mean, Matthew?
Chunking is a term used by scientists, more commonly known as units of information. That's what chunking is. That chunks are pieces of memory, and the units of information, and these units of information store past and previous experiences. So it's like what letters are to words, and what words are to paragraphs, and what paragraphs are to poems and stories. So each individual piece on their own really means nothing, but then letters form words, and then words form sentences, sentences can form paragraphs, and can form these beautiful poems and stories and things like that. So a golfer would have chunks, or would want to create chunks, these units of information, so they have a vast amount of knowledge on the particular shot that they might be playing.
That's a fantastic analogy, and when I heard you speak at the PGA show, that analogy really helped me understand the process of chunking. But can you give the guys watching the course an actual specific golf analogy or a golf example?
Yeah, I think the best one to use is Phil Mickelson. You know, Phil Mickelson, on a lot of press conferences and a lot of interviews, you can find lots of videos online. If you ask him about a shot that he hit on a certain hole in a golf tournament a few weeks ago, he'll be able to bring that very instance up, and he'll be able to recall it for all of its finest details, from the way the grass was, from the texture of the grass, from what was behind the flag, how big the crowds were, how the slopes and the undulations were between the ball and the flag. He'll be able to create this very vivid image of that situation. And he's only been able to do that because of all of the history of him playing golf and creating similar situations in practice, or being in similar situations in competitive play. So he's formed chunks, units of information from his experience and history, which when he was in that situation there and then, he could go back and recall them units of information and then bring about a shot that would be able to be executed at such a high level and provide him a better chance of performing to his potential there and then.
Awesome.
He's probably the best example. He'll tell you in video interviews very, very specifically and very detailed what that situation was like.
Awesome.
You've always thought that way, very analytical.
There's a lot that I process on every shot, and there's a lot of detail. Do you want me to touch on it, or is it boring?
Hey, tell me about it.
Well, in my practice, I build a reference. So I hit the same shot over and over, building a 9-iron that goes 145 yards, let's say. Now, that will vary based on temperature and altitude, and which will change with time of day and whatnot, as well as wind and those effects. But one of the things people will say is I hit my wedge, 120. Well, you might hit a 120 under certain conditions, but in the morning, ball's not going to go 120. Maybe in the afternoon when it's warmer and the ball heats up, but it's going to go 5 to 10 yards shorter in the morning. People don't factor that in. If you get a little bit of water in between the club face and the ball, people don't know it actually increases spin, causes it to go shorter. The first cut always comes out 6 to 8 yards dead. If the grain is into you, it's going to launch and hit lower on the face, launch lower, have more spin. If it's down grain, the club slides a little bit quicker, you'll get more out of it. If it's sitting up on zoysia or off of a tee, always goes 5 yards farther with each iron based on the fact that the center of gravity is underneath the ball and it launches higher, a little bit less spin. All these things I have to factor in when I look at the lie. Okay, how is the lie and how is the ball going to come out relative to my 145 9 iron? Now, that's 10 off a stock, so I have a normal swing.
Right.
And then I have a second swing for every iron shot. And that's it's a little bit shorter backswing with the same acceleration. So I have a 145 and a 155 yard shot. What is the lie going to do? What's the temperature? What's the wind? How do I want the ball coming into the green? If you choke down an inch, 3 yards comes off of it. 1 degree aloft is 3 yards. So if you open the face a degree, that's 3 yards. So if I have a reference of 145, I want it to fly 142, I can choke down an inch. It'll come in a little bit lower, a little bit flatter, and release. Or I can just open it up and hit a little bit of a cut. That'll be 3 yards, but it'll back up. All these variables, like I'll process like that when I look at the lie and assess the situation, see what kind of grass it is. And those are the nuances that allow me to be so precise with my wedges and my short irons and my distance control.
Right.
And that's why iron play has been such a strength for my game, is that I'm able to be precise to within a yard or two. And in my practice sessions, because I hit 1,500 balls every month to those specific numbers, my reference is pretty on. If I hit a shot 145 and I feel like I nailed it, it usually
where it
does
goes.
that. Yeah.
So there we have it. Elite performers such as Phil Mickelson taking more information than the novice golfer. And they place this information into meaningful chunks, and that creates the shot. So how do we help students evolve their ability to chunk? Simple. Through helping them engage in the O and the S of OSVEA, the options and the selection phase. Golfers that are repeatedly exposed to the performance environment, i.e. the golf course, begin to develop the ability to chunk information. And they do this through habitually engaging in the O and S of OSVEA, the options and the selection phase. A student that is out being coached in the environment that the game is going to be played on starts to understand how different lies affect the ball flight, how different winds affect the ball flight, how slope can affect their shot, how tucked pins aren't always the ones to attack. They develop this bank of information, this knowledge to call back upon and begin to chunk data. And this then allows them to select more appropriate clubs, targets, and shot shapes. How can we help our students do this in a practical, challenging, and fun way? Obviously, game-like training. So, here's a few training tasks that students can engage in to help them develop the ability to chunk, like Phil Mickelson, and evolve their O and S of OSVEA.